Hello, it's Clive de Carle here, and I think we're all aware that all of us are toxically poisoned one way or another. I think it's unavoidable. You just got to breathe or drink water or eat food and you're toxically poisoned. And for, I suppose, I don't know, 20 years or so, I've been aware of the wonders of zeolite as one of the many materials you can use for detoxification. And first of all, I started using the powdered version. Then I realized that the micronized liquid version was much more effective. And currently, the version that I'm promoting, suggesting that people try, is the one that Dione is going to speak about now, because her personal story is fascinating, and I think everybody's going to be rather interested. So Dione, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. It's Dione, actually.
Oh,
So,
Dione.
yes. Right. So it's a pretty long story as to how I got to that point where I needed the detoxification. I'm not sure how far back to go, but I think like many others, through having a body that is not functioning properly, you start looking into different options and why you're at the point that you're at. So through various different issues throughout the years, chronic fatigue, yappy flu, whatever they wanted to call it back then, having food sensitivity issues, etc., I looked at different ways of trying to heal my body over the years and used ozone and things like that. But this was then on a whole new level. So discovering that I had a brain tumor in 2020, well, actually it was in 2021 that they realized that that's what it was. So I was going through these sort of terrible symptoms where I had numbness in my face, my right ear went deaf, and I went in to try and investigate. I was sold a bit of a red herring by the ENT that I went to, so still had no answers. And eventually when the right side of my face went numb, I realized that there was something quite drastic going on, and I went to a neurologist. They then wanted me to go in for an MRI, and it was during the peak of the virus. We won't go into details about that, but I was not keen to go into hospital at that point because literally a friend of mine's mother had died, another very good friend had died. So I was, not that interested in going into hospital. Eventually I had to cut a long story short, they did an MRI and they found that it was a brain tumor. An acoustic neuroma, which fortunately is not, it's not cancerous, but it was still of a size that it was pushing on the brainstem and the cerebellum. So I had major balance issues. And I was starting to get to that point where I felt like I was going to have seizures, etc. So one of the major things was that for them to see clearly the tumor and the size of the tumor, they had to use contrast dye, which, as you know, is gadolinium. And at the time, I asked, when I had to sign the form, I said, okay, well, what is this? She said, oh, no, it's fine, just sign it. So I said, well, what am I signing? She said, oh, no, it's just the dye that they use. It's not a problem. They use it every day, which clearly they do use it every day. But, that's as far as the informed consent went. I then had to recover from the dreaded virus. So I came home and I had to get myself well before I could go and see the neurosurgeon in the other hospital, the other local hospital. And so I took a couple of weeks and I went to see him. And he showed me the MRIs and suggested that the tumor was too big to use gamma knife radiation, that they'd have to operate. So in your ignorance at the time, of course, and also the fact that it was the size that it was, the symptoms were quite bad, I said, okay. And they then set up a date for the op. But being the time that it was, the op was delayed 3 times and was 3 months later, by which point I felt like I was having seizures and I literally just had to lay low and take the cortisone that they had now given me in large doses. When I went into hospital for the op, I had another MRI with contrast, I had the op, which was a 6-hour neurosurgery. They then did 2 weeks later, did another MRI, again with contrast. All of these 3 at this point had been with contrast dye. And only to discover that they hadn't actually managed to get very much of the tumor out at all, because while they were monitoring the nerves while doing the op, the machine kept on sounding off, showing that I could have ended up with Bell's palsy or some radical nerve damage. So they, even though it was 6 hours, they stopped at that point, not having got much of it out, and I then had to recover. At that point, 2 weeks later, after having the op, the neurosurgeon said to me, look, you know, I suggest that you go in as soon as you can and have gamma knife radiation. So I said to him, well, I thought that was an option, you know, it was either the op or the radiation. And he said, no, you know, we couldn't get it out, so you're going to have to go and have the radiation. I don't want to see you back here in a couple of years' time. In other words, it's going to continue to grow. So I didn't really have an option. They gave me until from the November to the February to get well. And in the February, I had to go for gamma knife radiation, where they did another contrast MRI with gadolinium. And then obviously the radiation, the gamma knife radiation, which is a very intense radiation for, I think it was about an hour and a half. And after that, I was left completely flat. I had no energy. I felt chronically fatigued, and I just had to lay low and recover from, you know, the 2 treatments. At that point, I still thought, okay, well, this is all just because I've gone through the dreaded virus, plus I've had the 6-hour neurosurgery, all the cortisone, the antibiotics, everything they give you in hospital, plus then the gamma, which is really intense. And they say, you know, you will be tired, etc. afterwards. It was only when I had the next MRI, because they want to do a follow-up after the gamma. So she gave me a couple of months. I said, listen, please, I've had 5 of these now. I need some time before having another one. I had another one, and that like knocked me flat again. I then realized that there's something else going on here. This is not just from what I've been through, all the interventions. It's, you know, possibly something else. I was trying to discover what caused the tumor so that I could mitigate going forward. Being surrounded by the panels where I live is not very helpful. But during that process, I came across Nikki, who was doing heavy metal detoxification at that point, and I thought, okay, well, I think this is something that could be a problem. Started researching a bit more, and then eventually decided to try and see if that was part of the problem. By now I'd had 6 contrast MRIs, and when I had the last one, which was July last year, I came out in a rash on my ankles. I had extreme sort of deep, like weird headaches, almost like a hangover kind of headache at the back of the neck, food sensitivity, skin itching. I had a whole range of symptoms. I literally wrote a foolscap page of symptoms. My hair had been falling out from the cortisone. Was it the cortisone? Was it that? Who knows? You know, everything just compounds. So I thought, okay, even as expensive as the product is in our currency, unfortunately, our currency is nowhere. I need to actually try and do it. So I managed to get the heavy metal detoxifier, the clean slate, and I started taking it very slowly. Within 4 days, the rash on my foot disappeared, which to me was like miraculous, and also something very visual that you look at and you can see that that's exactly what it is. There's no, you know, there's no getting away from it. It's obvious that that was what took the rash away. And then I started feeling energized. Within a week, I sort of started feeling energized. I went to see the oncologist that had done my gamma, and she was amazed. She couldn't believe it, how well I looked. And she actually sounded very interested in detoxification for her other cancer patients that are on all sorts of chemo and stuff. But I then went through a bit of a radical detox, which I think, in retrospect was because of all the treatments. So I'm normally a healthy person. I eat very healthy. I don't drink much alcohol. I now drink pretty much none. But I have a very healthy lifestyle. I exercise. I do all the right things. So I thought, okay, this will be it's just a matter of getting out the heavy metals. Little did I know that obviously all of those things had compounded with the cortisone, the antibiotics, the gadolinium. I obviously had mercury from all the fillings, etc. So I went through a pretty much a 5-week detox where the brain fog got worse, etc., etc. But I knew exactly what it was. I knew it was just a detox. I've used ozone before and other things where you go through a detox process. So I kind of just lay low and carried on doing what I could. I then came out of the detox and I suddenly felt like I had my life back. Like my energy came back. I was suddenly able to go to gym again and actually do something. Before that, when I just walking up the stairs, it was as though my legs the messages they just weren't getting through. My legs would cramp. And this is after a lifetime of exercise. I mean, I did 2 exercises, 2 different sports a day as a child growing up. I've carried on playing sport as an adult. I gym daily, etc. And yet I just was completely energyless, flat, etc. until I went through this detox. And I literally came out feeling like I could run a marathon. I mean, it was amazing. So it was a chalk and cheese kind of change, So I carried on with the clean slates. And then I thought to myself, you know what, this is something that can help so many people. Part of my whole being is being able to pay things forward, help other people. Part of my healing journey has always been, I believe, to help other people through theirs. So I kind of got a few other people onto clean slates, and I then managed to get myself the 0 in because I thought, you know what, neurotransmitters, really important after going through the whole neurosurgery and everything. So I got that. I found that really helped. And then when I could, I added another product to restore the body, which is called Restore. And that then gave me the good stuff to put back in. So once the heavy metals had been removed, it was able to put the nutrition back in, which my body could now absorb because it wasn't being blocked by the heavy metals. And to cut a long story short, I'm now playing squash again, playing tournaments, playing summer league, last week I went away for a tournament. I played Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There were 5 matches. I came back and straight into another local tournament from Monday to Thursday, where we played 2 matches a day of continuous 25 minutes each, so 50 minutes continuous. And it's just been a miraculous turnaround. I've had supplements over the years with certain things. I know magnesium has always been a problem with me. I've needed acidophilus for food allergies and things like that. And those are the things that I've carried on having because those are the things that I feel actually help. But the other things that you buy over the counter, a lot of them are just, you can't really feel any difference. And to me, if you're not feeling any difference, they're not doing anything. So I rather focused on eating a healthy diet with all the leafy greens and having a bit of fruits and doing the right things. But this is a complete turnaround, like a chalk and cheese change. So you can't deny the effects of it. It's just such a massive, miraculous change that you can see visually as well, skin, hair, nails. And it actually feels like the neurotransmitters are working again. Things are starting to pick up. The muscles are starting to react and respond. My brain fog is completely gone. The general fatigue is pretty much gone. That whole list of symptoms. So what I was doing, I'd written myself a list because I know how easy it is to forget as you progress. And I went through it, and sort of halfway through, I was ticking, okay, that's half gone, that's half gone. And in the end, I literally ticked the whole list off. Those symptoms are all gone. bearing in mind that I am still taking the products and they are still helping me. You know, you never know by this stage of life what the backlog is, how much has gone into your body through the water system, through metal fillings in the teeth, whatever. And then all the things that we've done over the years that have added to that. But I just think, you know, with things being depleted as they may be coming out of the soil, not with as much nutrition as they should be, I've just carried on. And yeah, I feel incredibly good.
Well,
So
that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, something I'd like to add, in my experience over the years of helping people detoxify, if they include, there's a special type of liquid selenium, if they include the essential amino acids, if they include fulvic minerals, MSM sulfur, and one or two other things, charcoal, for instance, it can help dramatically with that detoxification period. Because when I hear people have a very hard detoxification, my first thought is, well, look, either you're going too fast, better to do it slower and gently, or you're going at the right speed, but you're missing the cofactors. Selenium is incredible for detoxification. It's probably number one. It's, as far as I know, the best thing for mercury, for example. And I used to do mineral testing for years, and it turned out that pretty much everybody who had that diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which is a meaningless phrase, they were all low on selenium, pretty much, all of them. And so, magnesium is my favorite go-to.
Yeah, me
if you're
too.
getting muscle cramps, for example, 9% of the time it's going to be a magnesium deficiency that is at the root of it. And so many of the drugs, of course, knock out so many minerals.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, in retrospect, do you know what you were deficient in or poisoned by that caused the brain tumor in the first place?
So that's what I've been trying to research. Now, in my history, my medical history, at 21 or so, I was playing the squash circuit. And South Africa had a circuit that was part of the world circuit. So it was really intense. I went to Johannesburg to play and I picked up some kind of virus. Who knows what it was? I ended up continuing to play. My muscles went into spasm. I herniated a disc, tried to continue to play stupidly. And I ended up with temperatures of over 42, getting flown home. And I was literally flat out for 6 months. My mom literally nursed me. I was sleeping 16 hours a day. They couldn't identify it. They said it was similar to glandular fever. They didn't have any knowledge of it. They called it yuppie flu at the time.
Had you been vaccinated? Because I got the symptoms of glandular fever when I was at school after being vaccinated, and so did most of my classmates.
Yeah, so I was vaccinated as a baby, as a child, you go through, as a toddler, you go through whatever it is that you have to have. And I know that my body is really sensitive to stuff. So that would have had an impact at the time. Who knows, I don't think that I had any vaccinations later on, but I really can't remember. There might have been one at school. I don't remember the extent of it later on. But I do know that when I had blood tests done later, like much later, it showed that I had Epstein-Barr virus dormant in my system. So in my mind, it was probably Epstein-Barr at the time, but at that stage, it was probably around about 1990, say. So they had no knowledge, as far as I know, out here necessarily, maybe not there, but in South Africa, they couldn't identify it. But the fact that Epstein-Barr showed up later, that was probably what it was. But there was no treatment protocol. They said, you just have to rest. They gave me Voltaren injection, and Miprodol was all they could do. And I literally just rested up. And the muscle pains and things were intense. I literally would go to bed or sit up to eat, go back to sleep, sit up and have some lunch, go back to sleep. Maybe in the afternoon, wake up, have an hour or so, chat, have some dinner, go back to sleep. It was that bad. My mom literally nursed me. And ironically, I have quite a few friends who've been through similar things over the years. But it's never really been identified exactly what it was. The fact that I had this huge, now hectic detox, could have been, you know, other things that had built up over the years, including that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, liquid zeolite, without doubt, will strip everything that you might have had 20 years ago. I mean, the whole
Well,
lot
this is
will come
yeah,
in, which is why taking it slowly, I think, is a good idea. But you see, I mean, you mentioned Epstein-Barr as a virus. I don't see it as a virus. I think maybe they can detect something in the blood, but what they're really detecting, if you like, is the body's inability to repair itself. And what they're looking at, things like exosomes and other things which they misidentify. But at the end of the day, you know, there are only three things that make any of us ill in the first place: physical damage, emotional toxicity, you know, real toxic whatever happens to us, and deficiency of nutrients. I mean, there isn't a fourth reason. What happened to me almost 40 years ago is I took an antibiotic for something really stupid, and I ended up in hospital, unable to get dressed, unable to walk. And after weeks and weeks in hospital, they said, well, there's nothing that can be done. Absolutely nothing that can be done. They said, well, you've got arthritis. They gave me names as to what was wrong with me. But all it was, because that was 40 years ago and now I'm fine. All it was poisoning and a nutrient deficiency, but 99% of it for me, well, I mean, no, it was both. It was the poisoning from the antibiotic and nutrient deficiency, because the antibiotic had wiped out the gut flora and I couldn't digest food anymore. But I think, you know, doctors believe that what happened to you, what happened to me is irreversible, you know. Once it's absolute rubbish.
Yeah, I guess, you know, their training just doesn't cover it. And when I mentioned to my doctor now, since that, you know, I'd had this heavy metal detoxifier, he absolutely just, it was like he hadn't heard it at all. And I just thought, you know, he's a lovely doctor and he's great for structural things, but the problem is people are going to him for healing and he just doesn't understand that or know that because they haven't been trained on it.
They're not trained.
We all know about the system, you know. But I didn't answer your question about the tumor. So when I was walked around the hospital by the physio in the hospital, literally they want you up the next day and you're walking around with this massive gash in the head. The physio said to me that in the previous 6 months from when I was there, the increase of brain tumors had increased 7 times in 6 months. Now, that was exactly when all of the 5G panels went up. And where I live, there's a block of, I'm in a complex, I've got a complex next to me, and the next is a block of flats, the only one sort of up in our area. And it's got like 8 masts on it, massive, that are 3 or 4 times the height of a man, because I see the little workers up there look very tiny compared. And if I go down, I'm 3 blocks from the beach. I look straight over the bay. And if I go down the road, there's a block of flats just down at the beachfront, which has another whole lot. And then 3 blocks down from that, there's another whole lot. So ironically or weirdly, my neighbor who shares a common wall has got exactly the same tumor that I have. It's an acoustic neuroma. You know, so what are the chances of that? You know, it's almost mathematically impossible for us to have exactly the same tumor when we live against a common wall. It's got to be a common, something that is causing that for both of us.
Maybe it's time to distribute leaflets around the neighborhood asking people, has this happened to you or somebody you know?
Yeah, I would like to do that. There's actually a group for our area, WhatsApp group, that I would like to also put it out on if I can. To be honest, initially I was just too exhausted and feeling too terrible to even worry about it. But now that I'm feeling well, and knowing that they have put these onto the local school grounds, etc., and between the schools and the care homes, it's something that really needs to be done, for people to become aware, because the research is now out there for everybody. It's not like it's any secret, even though they're trying to attribute it to other things. I mean, it's pretty commonsensical right now. So yeah, that is something that I need to do. I haven't got around to it yet, but I definitely need to do that. And I need to make a plan for myself to not be in the space which I love, but I'm obviously, it's not good for my health.
Well, you've got a choice of moving or chainsaw.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's on the top of about a 20 or 14-story building, so the chainsaw is not going to be an easy option, but there must be a way without having to move. But yeah, I mean, I have thought about the option of moving.
Yes, I mean, it's that or trying to persuade the council to listen to reason, but they're usually in the pocket of the bad guys and are unlikely to listen to anything.
Yeah. I think our local councillor might actually be open to it, because I did notice the last time they wanted to put a mast up, that was in the next little sort of suburb down, they actually put a notification on the group to say, does anybody object? If there were objections, then they would have to look into it. So the fact that they didn't do that before means that they should have done it.
They'll want to cover their backs from an insurance perspective.
Yeah.
But I mean, what would be interesting is to ask everybody not only that question, but also, has your internet or phone performance improved with these wonderful new technologies? Because nobody notices the difference.
Exactly. And I had this exact conversation last night, because I watched a 3-hour expose by Children's Health Defense that was like a TV. They have a TV, a daily or a weekly program that they have, and it was professors from around the world who had actually done the research, pulled all the research together, etc., and they had all the data proving, and it was acoustic neuromas and neuroblastomas were the most common tumors, but the stats were ridiculously strong. You couldn't deny it. There were maybe 3 studies against and 30 studies for the fact that it had been proven. And one of the schools turned down the intensive, they made it less intense. So in other words, they brought it down to 1G or 2G, and they had exactly the same connectivity within the school, but the children weren't getting affected. So, it can be done.
Well, exactly. By the way, do you know 100 years ago what they would have done with a tumor like yours in a hospital?
No, not sure. I probably just would have been left.
No, it wouldn't have been like that at all. Prior to the Second World War, I mean, let's say you had a tumor here in London, England, right?
Yeah.
Guy's Hospital, a very famous hospital, they started their electrotherapy department in 1843.
Wow.
Right? And if you wind forward another 60 years or so, I don't know, there's enough light for you to see this. This is a hospital machine. Is there enough light for you to see that?
Yeah, I can see that clearly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so every major hospital would have had these. Up until the Second World War, there were hydrotherapy spas all over England, very famous spas, often built by the Romans and so on.
Yeah.
And these hydros offered cures using water. I mean, for instance, in Bath, there is the Royal Mineral Water Hospital. It's massive. I mean, it's shut now, being turned into a hotel or something, but this sort of electrotherapy was normal all across the country. Dentists would use them because you can do all sorts of dental work with less pain and so on. But the first, well, I used to work with a medical doctor some 20 years ago, and he was the first person who introduced me to these devices and encouraged me to track one down on the second-hand market and buy one. And so the very first person that had a tumor, it was a glioblastoma, and this guy had been given 3-4 days, maybe it'd make a week to live. And we used the old machine on his brain, right? We shaved
Yeah.
his head. He had a
Yeah.
cleaner who came in every day. We taught the cleaner how to use the machine. It took 5 minutes to teach the cleaner. And the cleaner used it on his head for 1 hour twice a day. Not that long later, clean bill of health. And, I've got a bundle of books behind me, old textbooks from back in the day,
Oh,
explaining
yeah.
exactly how they did it. And so these machines were invented by Nikola Tesla in the 1880s, and he showed them to the public and gave away exactly how to build them in
Yeah.
1881.
Wow.
And so
Isn't that
these have been
incredible?
around for a long time. And that machine would have been built in the 1920s. So they'd already had 30 years of
Yeah.
experience.
Amazing.
And of course, the problem was that, yes, the machines were very expensive to build, but once you got them, I mean, my one's 100 whatever years old. It's when we took it apart to see what it needed, in way of restoration, there was
Yeah.
nothing. There was nothing that needed doing. I mean,
That's amazing.
it had a real life, but it was made to be the best machine in the world at that time.
Yeah.
And but obviously, the power of the media, they managed to persuade everybody that a pill was better than granddad's old-fashioned rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I remember going back some years, having treatment with a rife machine,
Yeah.
and the same thing happened with the rife machine.
Yes.
They
Well, exactly. And not many
were
people know that.
discredited, chased out the country. Yeah. So
I tell
I
you,
definitely think, if you can supercharge the body with what you need. I've been using ozone for years. I've got an ozone spa that I put in the bath. Obviously it's not been able to sort out the tumor, but it's done a whole lot of other things. That was when I had that chronic fatigue before, and they said it was whatever it was. That was what helped me to heal my body then, was using ozone. So, I think the natural therapies have got so much value, but people have been conned into believing that, there's a pill for everything. And unfortunately, the pills just make it worse.
well,
Having lost both my parents to cancer, I've seen exactly how it works. And it's just really sad because I have friends now that have gone in for treatment for something or other, one for melanoma, somebody else for swollen glands. The first thing they did was take their glands out.
so
And
the
I
first
said,
thing they did was to what? Take a what?
take their lymph nodes out.
No, I mean, anybody who goes to a doctor expecting health is going to the wrong shop, because they don't study health, they study drugs,
Yeah.
radiation, poison. I mean, it's insane. But
Yeah.
people don't understand that they don't know about health.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
taught, well, your body's gone wrong.
And
Probably
it's really sad. Yeah. And it's really sad because these are people that, through no fault of their own, it's just ignorance that they've gone and done what they've been told is the right thing. And even now, the one person hasn't had their glands taken out yet. And I spoke to their wife and I was like, please just try and get them to get a second opinion. They need those. They need those.
Yeah, I mean, go to somebody
Yeah.
who's not medical. Go to somebody who has been for decades, hopefully, reversing cancer, reversing whatever it is, because our
Yeah.
bodies are self-repairing. Doctors don't know that. Our bodies are
Yeah.
self-repairing. All you got to do is get the
Exactly.
toxins out, put the good stuff in.
Yeah. Give them what they
And
need and they'll heal themselves.
yeah, but if somebody, how would, if I wanted to prevent cancer in myself, for instance, what would I make sure I was doing? I mean, making sure I was getting sunshine all the year round, or vitamin D in winter,
Yeah.
if there wasn't any sunshine. I'd be taking vitamin C, or at the very least, squeezing a fresh lemon or lime every day or something. But getting
Yeah.
vitamin C, personally, I do both. I supplement and try to eat my way to vitamin C, but it's almost
Yeah.
impossible these days to get fresh food, not really fresh, and
Yeah.
deteriorate. with heat and time and stuff. Magnesium, for me, if I don't take magnesium every day, I get muscle cramps, all the usual magnesium issues. So magnesium is the big one for me personally. Selenium. I mean, there are a few others I could mention, but iodine. Iodine is crucial to keep tumors at bay. Same for cysts, fibroids.
Yeah.
Our thyroid problems are almost always an iodine deficiency at the end of the day. Iodine and selenium is the thyroid answer.
So what I didn't go into detail about, and is actually one of the main things when I started taking the heavy metal detoxifier, was my throat, my glands were so swollen that it was like when I lay on my side, I felt like I was choking.
Wow.
And my levels of parathyroid hormone in the blood were so high, and calcium, that they wanted to remove the parathyroid glands. Fortunately, they then discovered the tumor and they forgot all about that and they focused on the tumor. But I would have been one of those people who was straight in, glands removed, etc. And within 4 days, along with the rash on my foot disappearing, the glands went down. And the associated panic attacks and anxiety that I had because of it went away. 4 days.
Yeah, I mean, liquid zeolite really is a magical product.
Yeah, it is. The iodine, and I'm trying to put things into perspective as well. I lived for a year in Japan, and when I was there, obviously you eat. Well, I did. I ate very much what the Japanese eat. And within a year, I lost 10 kgs without trying at all. You do walk a lot, but I think it's also the diet, and bearing in mind that they have a lot of fish and they have a lot of seaweed. I'm sort of starting to think maybe that's part of why it sorted out the thyroid and the metabolic function, because of the iodine and whatever else that would have been in that diet.
Yeah, I mean, in the Japanese language, they have no word for menopause.
Amazing.
They don't supplement with iodine, obviously. They're getting it all, as you say, from fish and seaweed. And how much does iodine cost to supplement with for a year? Well, $25 US, 25 pounds.
Amazing.
25 euros. I mean, for a year. And they used to sell it in England here in the pharmacies and the chemists. Used to be able to buy it for £1 a bottle.
Wow.
Then people started waking up to the fact that all your hormones are governed by iodine. So everybody with hormonal problems, the first thing to think about is iodine and selenium. And that reminds me, I had a woman some time ago who'd had period pain so bad that for like a week, a month, she was off, out.
Oh my gosh.
In one day, when she discovered high dose magnesium, she never had a problem ever again in that day.
Incredible.
I recommend high doses of magnesium, much higher than most people.
What sort of level?
Well, I recommend a couple of different types, but the one I take myself is a blend of bisglycinate, malate, taurinate, and citrate. And that blend works really well. So I take, generally speaking, something like 6 a day. And they're big ones, right?
Yeah.
But I've had people who were suicidal, had people desperate pain, and I suggested 12 a day.
Sure.
If they're big, why not try 15, right? You don't want to do that forever. And you want to take them in separate doses, because you take too much, you get diarrhea. But most people notice magnesium in a day. Sometimes people's headaches stop, migraines stop, epilepsy stops, constipation stops, the heart arrhythmia stops, muscle cramps stop, restless legs stops.
Exactly.
Depression, anxiety. I mean, it's unreal.
So when at one point, I was going through another dip in health when I was having major work stress. And they did blood tests to see what was wrong. And the one thing that they said was I was magnesium deficient, like really magnesium deficient. This is going back,
okay.
you know, maybe 15, 20 years.
But let me interrupt you for a second.
Then
The interesting thing is that blood tests for magnesium are next to useless. So if it actually showed up that you're deficient in your blood, then in your cells, you would have been very deficient.
yeah,
yes.
And it was stress.
Yeah, so stress depletes magnesium.
Yeah.
You are. And so, because all of us are stressed,
Yeah,
all of us
exactly.
basically need magnesium.
Yeah.
And
even more so if you have a death in the family or you've got work stress or something else that's a really huge stressor, it's obviously going to be even worse.
Yeah, any type of stress, EMFs, 5G, anything, any type of stress depletes magnesium. So all of us are bombarded with stress.
Exactly.
And so that's why, in my opinion, it's number one. If I could only recommend one supplement, it would be magnesium and the right type. The problem is, like you go into the supermarket, everything they sell there is basically poison. I hate to say that. I'm sure there are some good things, but pretty much all of it will do you more harm than good. Synthetic versions rather than natural ones.
Yeah, we are lucky in that there's a very good health, or it's a health shop, but they manufacture locally, and it's the person who's put the products together is a, what do you call them, a homeopathic pharmacist.
Right.
And their products are good. That is the magnesium that I take. It's called magnesium remineralized, so it's got some of the minerals in it, and it's magnesium glycamate.
Yeah. Glycinate is just fine. However, the reason I prefer a blend is that each type of magnesium salt has its own slightly different characteristics.
Yeah.
So, the mistake that most people make is taking magnesium oxide, which is just awful, or they take magnesium citrate. Now, I've got magnesium citrate in my blend, about 25%.
Yeah.
But if people take the amounts that I'm suggesting of pure citrate, they'll be in the bathroom with diarrhea way before the symptoms get fixed.
Yeah.
But glycinate that you're taking, or bisglycinate, really I would say is number one. If you could only choose one, that would be it. For some people with neurological issues, some prefer one called L-threonate.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I find this one works really well. So I've stuck to it. And if I haven't been able to get it and I've got something else, it hasn't worked as well. So I've just gone back to that same one. But I think what I've done is I haven't had enough. So it says take one morning and evening, and I've been taking one in the evening, sometimes one in the morning, but I need to have more.
Yeah, you're not touching the sides with one. This is the mistake that almost everybody makes. They read the label and assume, well, it might be dangerous if I took more. Nobody ever died from a vitamin, apparently. Nobody ever has died from a vitamin overdose. Minerals, yes, you can get it wrong, clearly, but magnesium is pretty much self-regulating because, out it comes if you take too much. So.
Yeah, and your body will tell you. You'll feel the difference as well. When you do take enough, you can feel the difference in everything, just the stiffness of the joints, the muscles, the reactivity of your muscles, and everything just feels so much better with the magnesium, sleeping patterns, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's amazing. If only everybody knew.
Yeah.
If it came out as a drug, it would automatically sell out worldwide forever. If people really,
Yeah. Unfortunately, people have just been conned over the years, but there are more and more people that are starting to think natural and are starting to realize that, hey, hang on, that the pharmaceutical is causing other side effects, and they then need other things to help that, etc. So people are starting to look more to nutraceuticals, thankfully, than just pharmaceuticals.
Well, I agree. I mean, I'm actually very positive right now because of all the changes that are going on in the world. People really are waking up and realize that they individually need to do something.
Yeah.
My feeling is that what would be rather good would be, instead of people going on strike or going on a march, which is inconvenient for everybody, it would be better to, as a group of people who decide, this is the next action I would like to focus my attention on, to actually meet the neighbours and go outside, knock on the doors of people you probably don't know who live in your street or your village or whatever it is, and say, "Hello, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not from a political party. I was going to go on a march today, but I thought it would be much nicer to meet you and find out who you are and tell you why I felt so motivated to spend my whole day. Have you got time? Now. And actually, if 1 million people, instead of going on a march, knocked on their neighbours' doors, it might be dramatic. Especially if their neighbour then got inspired and went down the pub or something and told 10 more people. One could actually get a message around the world that the media doesn't want you to hear in a day. Because they're not going to hear about the march, probably.
And it's a knock-on effect, and it's exponential, because that one person will tell 2, who will tell 4, etc., etc. So it does, I mean, this was a conversation that I had last night, which was very interesting. It just so happened that the person I was chatting to, or one of the people, did some sort of environmental impact studies, and was well aware of the effect of EMFs and stuff. And it was so refreshing to speak to somebody who wasn't trying to shout me down, who was well aware and interested in hearing what the actual effects were, because, they knew it, but hadn't actually had firsthand knowledge of somebody who had experienced the direct effect. But there again, that will become part of her story going forward.
Well, fantastic. It's been great speaking to you, and
Thank
great to
you.
hear your story. And for people who are interested, on my website, clivedecarle.com, you can see all the products we've been talking about. I've got this thing called the Secret Health Club. Has my colleague signed you up to that?
No.
Okay, so I got taken down off YouTube by the British government in 2014. So 10 years. And at that point, I decided that the information that I wanted to share with people should be available. So as YouTube shut me down, I started a club, which I called secrethealthclub.com. Secret Health Club.
Okay, brilliant.
And over the last 10 years, it's grown now into a sort of repository of what I think are the key bits of information. They're not hundreds of videos on each subject. There's maybe 6 or 10 or whatever that are what I think are really focused on. You've got this tumor. Okay, read this. Hear your story, for example.
So people are aware.
So
that's amazing.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said that's amazing that people can go there and get the information that they need.
Because I have to employ staff, I charge people to join it. However, if people can't afford it, they can just email me, clive@clivedecarle.com, and say, I can't afford whatever it is, but I can afford whatever. Otherwise, if you can't afford anything at all, I'll sign you up for free. So, because I believe information should be free at the end of the day. At the same time, I've got to eat, all that stuff.
Exactly.
So one last thing I'd like to mention while you're on is, I used to use the big Tesla devices from the hospitals, but now I use the ones that doctors and dentists and people at home use. And if they're interested in them, I restore them and sell them, so people can get in touch with me if they want a fully restored piece of incredibleness. I've got a video on the Secret Health Club where I got 34 people out of pain in a row in less than 5 minutes. 34 in a row with a 100-year-old piece of kit.
I wish you were in South Africa. We need you.
Well, it's somewhere I've always wanted to come. It seems to be slightly more risky than it was years ago.
Yeah, I think in certain ways, yes, but actually in other ways, no, not really. I think a lot of the stuff is sensationalized. There are things that go on, there are attacks, whatever, but largely, you know, if you know where to go and you're not silly going around at night and you're not walking with a camera hanging around your neck, you're going to be absolutely fine. Local knowledge helps. Where shouldn't I go? Don't go down into the, you know, the taxi rank and you'll be fine, kind of thing, you know. I mean, I went down yesterday, was a beautiful day. I went down and I walked on the beach on my own. Beautiful miles of white sand beach, no problem at all, you know. So I think what gets shown, and I know because I lived in the UK for 3 years, what gets shown on TV there and what happens here are two very different stories.
Okay.
And again, it's what people want you to see, you know, what you get shown.
Yeah.
So if people are wise, and you have to be wise wherever you travel in the world, you know, and get local knowledge, then it's actually safe. It's fine.
Good, good.
Yeah.
And which
Yeah.
part are you?
I'm in Port Elizabeth, which is on the east coast, sort of halfway between Durban and Cape Town.
Right.
I'm from Durban, but I love it down here. It's peaceful, beautiful beaches. It's quieter. So Durban's very busy. Cape Town's exceptionally busy, but beautiful. Durban is not the greatest at the moment, but I still think South Africa is a beautiful place to live. I've traveled around the world to many, many countries, and I've yet to find somewhere that is as awesome as home. I mean, of course, it'll always be home, and I love Japan, I love Thailand, I love many countries. Ireland's one of my favorites, but home will always be home, and it's a beautiful place, and I would recommend anybody from anywhere in the world to visit because it's a stunning country and it has so much to offer that you won't find anywhere else. The diversity is massive, but you know, just wherever you go, get local knowledge and do it and enjoy it, because life's too short to be stuck in a box because we're too afraid to do things.
Well, quite. So if you're going to tell somebody who'd never been to South Africa before, where would be a good place to fly into and then where to go from there? Where would you say?
Okay, that's quite a tricky one because there's so many different things. It depends what somebody enjoys. I would definitely say you want to go and see the game parks. So the big five is what everybody wants to see. For that, you would need to fly to Joburg and go to, you could even fly, but drive out to Kruger Park is amazing. You've got the big five, you've got all the wild animals there. If you're happy to see what we have locally, it's maybe fewer of the rhinos and that kind of thing. I mean, we've got Addo Elephant Park. It's half an hour drive from our front door. And it's beautiful. There's millions of elephants. There's the odd lion, hyena, etc., other things. Not hyena, sorry, jackal. So it depends what somebody wants to see. Durban, if you go inland, you'll end up in the Berg, which is beautiful mountainous area, green as anything, stunning waterfalls and climbs, you know, hikes and things to do. And then from Port Elizabeth to Cape Town, where I live now, there's something called the garden routes, and you can drive from Port Elizabeth to Cape Town. There's beautiful things to see along the way, stunning coastlines, indigenous forests, lots to see. And then down towards the Cape, you've got, again, beautiful beaches, wine farms, mountains. There's loads to see.
Yeah.
You know, it depends how much time you have, really. But to come and do a week is not going to cut it. You're going to need, you know, 3 weeks to a month to really have a good experience. Yeah. And coming with the pound or the dollar, you would have a fantastic time because it's relatively reasonable to eat out, and to have a drink here or there or to do things is actually very cheap if you compare it to, you know, doing stuff in Europe or in the UK or even the States for that matter now. It's more on a par with parts of Southeast Asia, cost-wise.
Well, fantastic. So thank you, Dione. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm so pleased you're well. And I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. And yeah, thanks for everything that I've learned from you as well, and good luck with your journey going forward. And I hope to see you in South Africa one day.
That'd be lovely. All right. All the best. Take care.
Thank you, you too. Bye. Bye.